Hello there.
Hi, I'm Rudy LeBron, and today I have a very special guest, Evelyn Brooks, who is running for the State Board of Education. How are you doing, Ms. Brooks?
Doing wonderful this evening. Blessed to be here with you. Thank you so much for the invite.
Well, no, I appreciate you coming. This is not a format that's for everybody, but I really appreciate when candidates come on and want to talk. Now, I'm having the state board candidates on there because they do carry our area, and it does affect us. But first, I wanted Miss Brooks to go ahead and introduce herself and give us kind of a rundown about her.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Evelyn Brooks. And as you have heard, I am running for the State Board of Education District 14. Just a little bit about myself. I am an educator. Born with a pencil in my hand, my parents told me. I have experience in the classroom and out of the classroom. I've taught in the states of Maryland, then on to Colorado, Denver, back to Virginia. I taught in the state of in Virginia, and I substitute really briefly here in Texas, the great state of Texas. After retiring from the classroom, I took on a tutoring business and I homeschooled my children. Shortly after that, I started a small homeschool program for other children and mostly young girl athletes. They were gymnast athletes, and we just had the privilege of doing school our way, a little bit differently, but still excellence and quality in education. Gave us a nice small classroom feel. And so now, just a year ago, actually, I ran for our local board trustees and here in the city of Frisco, got my feet wet a little bit, and now I am running for the State Board of Education. And this evening, hopefully, you will learn more about where I stand on the issues. I definitely stand here to be a voice for parents, and I represent teachers. I represent that perspective as opposed to an association or even the state of Texas. Being a teacher, you're concerned about your children. You're concerned about the children and the business of teaching. So that's just a little bit about myself. Yeah, thank you.
Well, well, I mean that it sounds like you've been around the education, uh, just the education system, in one way or the other your whole life,
Mhm.
and so now you're progressing on from the Frisco ISD onto the State Board of Education. So I'll be honest with you, the State Board of Education was not something that I knew enough about. I did a little bit of studying in show prep, but it is definitely something that I'm not familiar with, but my viewers may not be familiar with. So can you go ahead and tell me what would be your duties as a state school on the state school board?
Certainly. I think, most and foremost, the most important job in my perspective, from my perspective for the State Board of Education, are the standards. A home is only as solid as the foundation it stands on. If there's not a firm foundation, then the house does not survive. It doesn't stand a chance. You start to see cracks in the ceiling and have foundational issues. And the same is with our standards. So the most important part of the State Board of Education members is making the standards for all the subject content that is taught in the state of Maryland or Texas, sorry. So in this state, we have approximately 5.3 million students who attend Texas public schools, and the standards are exactly and legally what teachers are employed to teach. So if we have a standard that says by the end of kindergarten, fourth month, students will be able to read proficiently at let's say independent reading level of first grade, first semester, that is a standard. And so as such, teachers will then select a curriculum. So usually your local ISD board, they will select a curriculum. And that's also another part that the State Board of Education does. So we recommend a curriculum for schools to use, but it is not mandatory. However, what is mandatory is the vetting process. So it is a long vetting process where you have experts, you have different publishing companies who would come in and show you what their curriculum is based off of the standards again. So and we have really good news about the subjects in the state of Texas that have really good standards. So we'll talk a little bit more about standards tonight, but that is the main important focal point are the standards, the curriculum, and it's just a choice, but it makes sure that it ensures that all the Texas essential knowledge and skills are attached to the curriculum. The state board also has the final say for charter schools. So they can either veto a charter school program here in the state of Texas or send it on through. Also, there's a permanent fund, a school fund, and that is the account that we use to purchase instructional materials. So they oversee and manage that funding, and it is a quite substantial amount of money. Started with just $2 million when it was first put together for the children here in the state of Texas. So that teacher certification, graduation requirements, those are some other parts that the State Board of Education is set up to take care of.
It sounds like you'll have your hands full, Ms. Brooks.
Yes.
Definitely have your hands full. So we're definitely going to talk about curriculum because that's a hot topic. But why do you want to run for the state's Board of Education?
Good question. I want to run for the State Board of Education because I can make a difference. We have a defining moment here in education, one that I've never witnessed before in my years of education and studying. And it's a time where I think more of us are aware and awake to the seriousness of how education has shifted. And it is not the same way that you and I were taught. It's not the same way that as adults we were taught going up from kindergarten up to 12th grade. So there's been a shift. And so upon noticing, and let me back up a little bit, because even when I ran for Frisco ISD, I think I could see there was something wrong where our achievement was not as high as it could be. Our standards weren't. I don't think our children were meeting standards, but I had no idea what was really underneath everything. I had some idea, as to why are we failing our kids and the way we're teaching, and because the test results, they don't lie. And so I thought I could go in and I could make a difference as far as some requirements, some standards of academic excellence. And then after realizing, oh my goodness, this is an entirely different vision for education. And when I realized that, I knew I could make a difference. I could reveal what a good education looks like and where we are right now. So definitely to use my expert advice and experiences to ensure that the children here in the state of Texas can achieve a high academic.
Thank you for wanting to serve. That is, and I tell every candidate that, because serving is I mean, it takes a lot of your time, and it takes time away from your family. It is intensive if you're doing it right. If you're doing your public service right, it will keep you busy. So do you have the time to invest in the responsibilities that this position would ensue?
I do. And you know what? Do you ever have enough time? Yeah, I don't think we
It's
have
only
enough.
24. I've been lobbying for 26, but God is not listening.
Yeah, it is still a lot. My schedule is open, but I do have a family. I am a wife, and I take that job very seriously. So it's a balance. It truly is a matter of balancing well for me. And have I found that nice sweet spot? No. But I work hard. I think I'm one of the hardest working candidates because I want to know all the issues. I have to hear all the problems. I have to listen to the families. I want to hear the children. And that all takes a lot of time. I can't just walk into this position and not know what's going on, not understand the demands of it. So it is a lot of time. I have set time aside for it, but it is still very sacrificial. And in some days, I feel like I'm I'm not measuring up, there's just not enough hours in a day, but it's not for a lack of effort.
Well, it definitely, it's good to know that you want to put the time in it, because it is going to require time. Our kids need help in education, and that's why people like you and your opponent and others get into this and try to do this. I at least I believe that's
Mhm.
editorializing. But okay, so the one thing that when you're serving in a government position, you have control of things, or you are one of a board, but
Mhm.
you set standards. You were telling me you said this, you said that. So I always ask a candidate, what is the role, and I normally say like school board, but you talked about the role of the state, the board of education. But what do you think the role of government is in the lives of people?
Very limited. Very limited. I believe that true freedom is self government. And I believe we're responsible enough to self govern ourselves as the citizens. I think definitely a military is important in obtaining our freedom and safety. So that is definitely a part that we do rely on the government for. But as far as education, as far as our day to day life affairs, our state affairs, that is a localized decision where founding documents support self governance, and so I believe in small government.
Excellent. So going into um, going into the issues, one of the things that obviously you can't go through the last 2 years without noticing that we got hit with a pandemic, and you were in Frisco ISD, and so you saw how school boards had to deal with things, or how they dealt with things. Um, looking at that and looking back on COVID and how school boards dealt with it, what are your thoughts on dealing with COVID, as far as mask mandates or any kind of mandates or plexiglass? Or, I mean, I know we can second guess now because we've been through it, but
Mhm.
it's good to find out where your thought process is for the people of Ellis County.
I believe that it was very unfortunate circumstances. I believe there was definitely a lot of loss of life. But one thing I do know, and I don't minimize what has taken place, I do know this, that once we do give away our freedom, we usually don't get it back. And so a lot of times the discussion is safety over freedom or freedom over safety, or, I believe that freedom is not free. I believe that it does cost. It does come at a price. And I think that's really what has made this nation great, is because you had farmers, you had everyday people, with the Revolutionary War, who got out to fight for the very foundation and the principles of this country. So as such, I think there's a very fine line between rights, freedom, and safety. And I think I've seen a lot of our freedoms taken away, with the mandates. I believe with teachers, I think it should be an option, but I think that they should have also been compensated with an offer they could not refuse for risking their health and coming to school, and even health benefits could have even been increased. But what we have what has been shown is, now our children, I believe, are very anxious. They deal with anxiety, they deal with depression, they now deal with social interaction, and in a lot of that has to do with the way we mishandled some of the parts of keeping people safe during the pandemic. I would also say that during the pandemic, it was really an eye opener, because we were also able to see how students are not prepared to work independently. They were not equipped with the independent study skills, the stamina, the ability to work without in a structured environment. So there's a lot of areas where we need to support our children and honestly just improve academic excellence. So I think there were a lot of hardships during that time, but it brought to attention a lot of areas where our kids are weak in, and and there are areas that where they're not being taught properly, if you ask me. And my concern on top of that is the iPads and the Chromebooks, they've not left the classroom. We still have classrooms where students are learning on the iPad and the Chromebook with the teacher standing in front of them. So if it didn't work so well with our children when they were at home on these on the devices, the digital learning, how are we going to improve the education system with more digital learning, after the pandemic? So I'm very concerned about the vision for Texas public schools in that regard. So again, I stand on the side of freedom, of course, with calculated risk, of course, just giving people an option. It's an option, and we had options. You can keep your child at home to learn, or you can let your child go to school, but it should have been a choice, even with teachers. So if you don't know by now, I'm not much for mandates.
Right, right. And it shows. So now that we covered COVID, there was something else that happened, and that was the conversations on race. And we're going to get into some of the things that stem in that, but there was conversations on race. And what and I thought about this question. I've asked this question to candidates that come on for school board. What can schools do to be more welcoming to people who put some minorities in general?
Mhm. The same thing we do before, race had become such an issue here within the past 6 years, and that is love everybody.
Yes.
Teach all the children. All children are born with the ability to be taught. All children can learn when given the opportunity to receive a quality education that is diverse, using the different learning styles. One that includes auditory, visual, tactile, kinesthetic. They're moving around. I mean, if you have a very effective teacher and you have high standards, children can reach beyond the ceiling. I mean, they can, sky's the limit. So I think when we put race, attach it to a child, and we put special focus on that, or a focus on you're unable to achieve or to do the same thing your other peers could do because of your race, that's misinformation, and that's miseducating our children.
Yeah.
Children are the greatest examples of love and a pure heart and curiosity. And why take that away from children? Why, in the name of our differences, would we
Right.
put such a heavy topic and burden on our children? Let them play. Children are going to select whoever they want to play with on the playground. And usually it's who's fun. They don't have a hard time finding friends, making friends.
Yeah,
We have
that's us.
this pressure on them, but they can do anything. I'm totally against race-based education.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel like, because you're Black, I owe you an apology. Here's the deal. I'm okay. A lot of people in my family,
Oh,
we're okay. We're thriving. We're successful. There's successful attorneys and doctors in my family and in my network of friends. I just don't want to make excuses for not being excellent in everything. And that's not a gender, that's not a color, that is a personal choice. And that's what I've taught my children. I've taught every color.
wow.
I've taught talented kids, gifted and talented. I've taught kids with special needs. My expectations don't change. I still have high expectations. I still do my job. I still make sure every child has an opportunity to be successful. And that is the job of education.
I love that line. I'm okay. Yeah, because yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
My race did not hold me back. It was
Mhm.
my decisions that I made along the way. But this country provided a lot of great things, and
It
got
did.
us successful. And so, but that said, that jumps into the other subject, CRT. Now,
Mhm.
I guess Texas had banned CRT, and there's a lot of conversations, at least in Ellis County, about CRT in the schools, and then how SEL relates to that, and it gets ugly. Unfortunately, it gets really ugly, the conversations online. And so I wanted to talk to you about that CRT, because what a lot of people have said is that um you have people who say, well, CRT is not in the schools. You're dumb. CRT is a college course. And then you have the other people that says, yeah, it's in here. Look, this is the tenets of that. This is that. It may not say critical race theory on top,
Mhm.
but it has the tenets of it. So as the as a state board, as being on the state board, you're going to be setting that curriculum. You're going to be the one voting to approve on these books.
Mhm.
So give me your thoughts on CRT, and what would you do if you are elected?
First of all, I love how you presented that. Let's go ahead and give ourselves permission to remove that title, CRT.
Okay.
Let's remove that definition. I This summer I had an eye-opening experience where there were two young children and we were at an ice truck for ices. And I heard the two young girls, two white young little girls, little, about elementary. I heard the first one eating her ice cream or her icy, and she says, um, "I'm a loser. I'm such a loser." And her friend sat beside her and said, "I am too. I'm such a loser." Now, I've been teaching for many years. And even before officially being given the title of a teacher, I worked with children. And that was the first time I ever heard children say that they were a loser or think that way of themselves. And I thought we're doing such an injustice if a child leaves from a school believing that they are a loser. There are no winners when we base anything on race. There's no winners. Self interpretation matters everything to a child. Whoever they perceive themselves to be is what they believe of themselves. We have to be so careful what we teach. We have to be careful that teachers are professional. We have to be careful that we don't impose our views and our lifestyles on children because self perception matters. So, where do I stand on the issue of critical race theory? You're right, it did start in scholarship. It started at the university level and the legal level. They combine, if you will, making a marriage. However, at the university level, those are the positions where we are training the next generation of employees, of employers, of CEOs, and school teachers. So, in some form or another, the ideologies of CRT, like you said, the tenets, it does seep into the classroom as well as other jobs and professions. Today, I like to use the word diversity, equity, and inclusion. It sounds so benevolent. It sounds so beneficial. It sounds like it is something that is going to include everyone and give everyone equality. But under the guise of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is based off of race. It is based off sex and gender. It tells us that we have to give from those who try very hard to do their best and share it equitably with others. It says that even though a child is able to go into an AP course because their aptitude is high above other students and they study to show themselves approved, that's not okay because it's leaving other students behind. So therefore, we see a mixing of our AP students and our unlevel grade level students. This doesn't make good sense and it doesn't make a quality education. In this country, you can earn anything. You can go anywhere you want to as long as you're willing to do some hard work and get the job done and do what is required. In the name of diversity, equity, inclusion, or CRT, whatever you put on it, equity is not equality. And we have to understand that we are making a generation of children lazier. We're making them more entitled. We're making a generation that is not able to cope with the real difficulties that come with life under the guise of, well, you just can't because you're a color, or you just can't because you come from this background, or you're an indigenous person, or if you didn't get an equitable share. Listen, life isn't fair. I think that's the first lesson we all learn growing up is life is not fair, but it is what you make of it. It is based off of the decisions. It is based off of your faith. It is based off of a lot, your attitude. So we're getting away from the basics. when we are so divisive on issues such as these ideologies.
Yeah. And that's it's definitely has become divisive, and it does, we do have a problem with kids being more emotionally fragile. It's happening because, I you do things in life we do what we do in order to give our kids a better life.
Yes, we do.
And so my kids grew up a lot better. They didn't go hungry. They didn't live in basements in New York. They grew up in suburban Texas.
Mhm.
Um, that these kids are not able to handle the things that, I had to go through, and have become a well-adjusted adult.
Mhm.
So there is definitely issues with that, and the victimology that comes with that, and how that affects you. But people say, some people say SEL is CRT, and some people say, SEL is not CRT. And then some people say it's like the SEO is like the train to which CRT takes. So
Mhm.
can you go ahead and kind of give me your thoughts on SEO, and then I want to move into some other subjects.
Absolutely. So, in short, social emotional learning lessons, again, they seem very benevolent, well, beneficial to instruction and education. However, I took a deeper look because just last year when I was running for the Frisco ISD, on the surface and the information I researched, it sounded wonderful to ask students how they're doing and to make sure that they're well and able to work and learn. That sounds very beneficial. However, when I looked closer to the social emotional learning lessons, I saw something a little bit more harmful to our children. I saw something that undermines adults and parents and guardians, um, and that is concerning. It's now based off of software technology, and there are third parties. So if I back up a little bit, the whole child is not the responsibility of the education system. The whole child is, however, the responsibility of a parent or and guardianship. So, as such, how my child it socializes, how my child feels and behaves about life and their belief system, all these systems are part of the family network. And when there's a breakdown in the family network, there's a breakdown in that child. So, the child does not need to understand or to learn how to behave socially and emotionally and how to internalize information. That is the role of a parent because everybody has a different theory. Everybody's absolute truths vary from, if you notice, my family's values are going to be different from your family values. Therefore, the responsibility of the holistic needs of a child socially and emotionally must rely totally in the hands of a parent. So when a parent is apart from a child and you have a social emotional lesson, it's usually a survey form, it's usually online, and children are asked, how do you feel today? Well, what makes you feel that way? Are you suicidal? A lot of the questions go from how do you feel today to have you ever had suicidal thoughts? To how many sexual partners have you had? To do you think your parents are against you? To so parents, we're too trusting. I don't trust anything that's not inside of a book that I can't see. I don't trust anyone or anything that's when it comes to protecting my child. So if we don't have a book, a textbook where I can see and follow along, if I don't have something in writing that the child is learning in terms of homework, I have a problem with that. Social emotional learning lessons are not on paper. It's not in a book. It's online. So the students, once they answer and they go to different activities, and we have no enforced accountability. My child, I can't even come home and say, hey, our family doesn't believe in this because I've not seen it. So anything that a parent cannot see or hear as it pertains to their child, you should be very aware. Regardless of what our differences are, you need to know what is being taught in the classroom, how it's being taught, and who's financially benefiting from what is being taught. This is just the role of good parenting. Because I'll tell you what I have learned with social emotional lessons is a lot of that information is undermining the role of the parent and all the hard work that we do in parenting our children. So it sounds wonderful. And then the data is being collected. Where is the data going to? There's third party rights and privacy rights. You don't know who the third party is. So your school used to be that we had a chart that as teachers we would write the grades down. We would write some of the pivotal points, that we observed from each student during class. And then in this file from kindergarten to 12th grade follows them on to college. When we have social emotional lessons and when we are putting this information online or through software technology, it is following children from kindergarten and beyond to adulthood, to the workforce. So we should all be very concerned about the information that our children are giving and to whom it's going to. So there's so many different dynamics that we have to really question. My advice to parents is opt out of surveys, know which social emotional learning lessons are being taught, and just be on top of everything. Ask and see and follow up and enforce, because these are our children and we get one shot.
Definitely get one shot. So I wanted to go into another social subject that's happening is the conversations of parents about the over sexualizing of our kids and some of those lessons and stuff that's going on with that. There's different documentaries that have come out, like Whose Kids Are These, and the other one, Mind Polluters. I actually had Mind Polluters on, the people who made that. But can you give me your thoughts briefly on that? And because I'm running over on my show, normally I do 30 minutes, but we're having some good stuff here.
Okay, I'll make it brief. This was really what made me get in the game, was comprehensive sexual education. This to me is a game changer. This is a game changer because you cannot introduce pornography to a child and expect that child to still thrive and grow into adulthood thriving. So it presents not only a problem individually, but to future families, to future marriages, to a future society. So the comprehensive sexual education is not the education that we grew up knowing. It's not about the biology of the body, hygiene, ways to protect your body from pregnancies, how you get pregnant. It is beyond that. It's teaching children how to have sex. It's teaching children in the name of inclusion how to have homosexual sex or gay sex, how to enjoy sex for pleasure rather than something that is sacred, that is ordained by God, given to one man and one woman in holy matrimony. Many of us still believe that. Some of us still have those values as families, and we should not be shamed for that, for having those values. So when we send our children to school and they're learning such concepts as early as kindergarten, masturbation, self-pleasure, we all should have a problem with that. Now we have a lot of graphic material in our libraries. It's showing children sexual content. The explicit language, even if it's not showing the images, the language is explicit. Put your in my I mean, this is not education. And everybody should be concerned because it affects our families. It affects our future. So sexual education should be taught at home because everybody has their own values attached to it. And there's a reason why as parents we teach our children sex, because we want to start out with the birds and the bees. We want to have modesty. And there's nothing wrong with modesty and how we teach our children about sex. It is not the role of the state. It is not the role of the government, but each has imposed in trying to show us how it should be taught to our children. Our children should not be taught sex. It changes entirely who they are, who God created them to be, and the trajectory of their future, because now everything is associated with this sexual premise, and that's taking away the innocence of a child. And honestly, it's child abuse.
Yeah. It there's some things that have shown up in books, and like Granbury, I believe, had some books that showed up. I mean, there's been books locally, and so there's some issues with that. And as a state board, on the state board, you're going to see a lot of that stuff come down in curriculum, and that would be your job to yay or nay, and we know now where you stand on that. So moving on from those things, the academic excellence and the standards. Now, that the pandemic had a big effect on all our children.
Mhm.
And the learning, the test, the learning, the, every, by every measure, the children have decreased in their knowledge. And so, as in on as the state board of education, what are some of the things that you can do, together, obviously, but you can do that can help improve that, or help districts, local districts, improve?
Mhm. And that's a good point because that is my intention. My intention is to help all the local districts that are inside of my, or counties that are inside of my district. And I really love that part about how the State Board of Education is divided into the 15 districts. Because in a way, I need to know what is going on in my district. I need to be an available resource and tool for the people that are affected in my particular district. And we help one county at a time. So as far as the education gap, even the achievement gap, as well as learning loss. I think, we need to look at the most vulnerable students, and I don't think we did a good job of that. We have to look at our special needs students first. A lot of them suffered, I think, the most because a lot of the materials that they need did not follow them necessarily at home. A lot of those speech and a lot of the help, the therapists that they usually would get at school did not follow them at home. And I mean, and most of your children, a lot of your special needs students could not use an iPad effectively as other students. So what do we do to service them? What do we do to service our ESL learners, our English second language learners? And how do we bring them up? I think we need real solutions, in my opinion. We have yet to come up with real solutions. I think everybody has been trying to put their heads together. But the idea is, if you know that there's a learning loss, we don't need social emotional learning. We don't need comprehensive sexual education. We don't need CRT. What we need is more reading. We need more writing. We need more arithmetic. We need more science. We need more. So what we do need more of at an accelerated rate, we've not been doing. As a homeschool family, I've had the privilege of selecting curriculum that is going to challenge my children and students. It's going to meet the requirements of the standards in the fastest, most succinct way so that children can learn quickly so that we can move on. For example, I had my children, when they were in elementary school, I had them learning middle school curriculum. When they were in middle school, I had them learning high school curriculum. So when they were in high school, we did dual credits, we did college. So you're always teaching and you always have high standards, and you're always making sure that you have a curriculum that is challenging, that is engaging. So there are strategies to still achieve high academic excellence. And I am not I don't take no for an answer. I'm not a make excuse type of person. Kids are resilient, and when we teach them resiliency and we teach them how to have high standards and how to esteem, the work of a student, I think we'll get good outcomes. I think we can definitely bridge the achievement gap and bridge the learning loss when we use just the methods that have proven to work. By first grade, children need to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. I mean, these are standards that all our children should be expected to do and perform at. So I think if we got rid of what is not real education and we replaced it again with real education, then we would see a significant growth. Because right now, Texas, our achievement level 41 in the nation, that's just not acceptable to me. That's a
Okay.
poor excuse when you have so much money, you have so much resources, and you're the United States of America. So I don't accept, a lot of what I'm giving, given and oh, it's this or that. No, those are excuses. And this is not the education we grew up on. This is something different. It's wasting time, and we're not serious enough about academic excellence at all.
Yeah. And thank you for mentioning the special education. That is a near and dear subject, and hardly gets mentioned. There is a lot of mandates that come down with special education, and normally not enough funding. And I've asked, I ask all the local school board members about that. The special education did take a big hit because they didn't have the things that trained professionals help them with on a daily basis. And we're not just talking about a teacher. There are speech therapists, there are all kinds of different professionals that get in there and teach. So they did take quite a loss. I wanted to ask you, what is one class that you'd like to see added to the requirements for graduating high school or graduating high school? Yes.
Mm, there's so many requirements there. I don't know if I would mandate a class, but I would definitely love for the focus to be for students having the ability to intern and to sit and shadow a professional in the field that they want to go into. I think they need definitely more hands-on experience as well as book smart, experience. But I would love to see them be able to engage more with real life experiences at that level, so opening that up, we do have the career and technology education component, maybe expanding that, but definitely being a true community where high schoolers are put to work and put to training and given the skills to pay their bills, upon graduation. But definitely just some of the hands-on experiences, apprenticeships, those type of opportunities where they can thrive the day after they graduate.
That was what I was going to mention. Not everybody's meant for college, and our system is tailored for you get out of high school and you go right into college, and not everybody's cut out for that. And it's not a bad thing to say. I've made
No,
my life on a trade, and I've met many people who have, and they don't have the student loans to go with it. So, it can tech or can Ellis County count on your support for the CTE programs?
absolutely. Expanding them and providing, like you said, more trade opportunities. I mean, we all need HVAC. We're all, I mean, these are things during the storm, what did we need? We needed that help, support. We
Definitely.
needed it. Unfortunately, I'm not a 10 at the electrical aspects of my home. I wish I did, but those are necessary fields. Absolutely. And if our children could leave with a certification or some experience in those areas, you're absolutely right. They can definitely thrive and achieve. And you're right. The path of college is not for every child. So I would love to see that expand.
So you're not walking around rewiring your house anytime soon.
I am not, but I will teach you how to read.
Yeah, okay, okay. Well, unfortunately, we come to the end of the show. This is the point when I give every candidate a chance to talk directly to the voters. This is your chance. I'm going to go ahead and give you the screen, and you go ahead, Miss Brooks.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much again, TV. It was such a pleasure to be here. Oh my goodness, with Alice Talker Show. What I want you all to know about me is I am truly a servant. I have a servant leader heart. My heart is right. My heart is definitely to bring once again a standard of academic excellence. I'm here to support you. I'm here to support families. I'm here to get into the grind, the everyday grind that the families endure on a day-to-day basis. I'm here to ensure that the rights of equality and equal education are stood behind. I'm your one. I want you to just understand that whoever you vote for really needs to be a voice for the children, teachers, and parents. I think we kind of get lost with associations and memberships and we start to have an allegiance to the state or to the government. My allegiance is to the people. I have an allegiance to make sure that our children are protected, that their innocence is protected, and that they have the tools that they need in order to succeed as adults who thrive and are contributing citizens in this country and in this state. So I am that candidate, and I just want you to know what you're getting when you vote for me. You're getting someone who doesn't know everything, but willing to find out. Thank you for your time. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate your kind words. I do have Miss Evelyn Brooks' opponent, Miss Tracy Fisher. She's actually coming on tomorrow, and I'll be having this conversation with her, and hopefully the people of Ellis County will be able to be informed in their choice during election day. Again, thank you so much, Ms. Brooks. It's been pleasant to have you. I went a little longer because I wanted to get this information. And again, I appreciate your time, ma'am.
I appreciate you as well. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Good night.